Hi, hello, this is Dr. Swapna. Welcome to your Learn Lab, your one stop for learning. I hope you're all doing fine. Today in this video, we continue with Unit 1 of Block 1 of BPCC 102. It's a very important course subject for the first year BA Honours Psychology students of IGNOU. And the subject is Biopsychology. The topic we cover today is a small one and it's called Neuropsychological Assessments. Let's see what it is. Here we have the textbook definition of neuropsychological assessments, and it says it's a comprehensive examination of behavioral, psychological, and neurological functions of a patient, which means you are assessing the behavior, the psychology, and the neurological function of a patient. And how you are testing, the tools that you are using are neuropsychological assessments. Let me explain this to you in simple words. The term neuropsychological assessment is made of two root words. The first is neuropsychological. This means how the brain affects the way we think, feel, and act. Okay, so neuropsychology is basically how the brain is affecting how you think or feel or act in a particular situation. The second root word is assessments. This means testing to find how well the brain is working. Okay, so this is the simple meaning of neuropsychological assessment. It basically is helping to test how well the brain is working. And what does the brain do? It is influencing how you think, feel, and act. So it's like a checkup of the brain. It helps you to find out which parts are strong and which parts might need some extra help. Why do we need neuropsychological assessments? Let's see. First, to get a clinical picture of the patient about their cognitive strengths and any difficulties faced in cognition. So, what do you mean by cognitive strengths? This means it is the mental ability or capability used for thinking, learning, processing information, and problem solving. Okay, so what are these mental abilities that you use to think, learn, and process information? That would be memory, attention, ability to reason, and critical thinking. So, neuropsychological assessment will give you a clinical picture of the capability to reason or critically think, the memory, and attention span of a patient. Secondly, it helps in treating the patient with appropriate medical or rehabilitative procedures. So, neuropsychological assessments will tell what is wrong with the brain, which are the functions that the brain are not capable to do, and based on it you can design treatment for the patient and give appropriate medical or rehabilitative procedures. Thirdly, it provides valid information about impairments that may result due to brain damage, injury, or trauma. It also tells how to take care of these deficits. This is what I just told, that it will give valid information about what is wrong with the brain. Impairments means whatever fault is there, which is due to which might have happened due to a brain damage, an injury, or a trauma. And it also helps us to decide how to take care of these deficits. Also, it helps to test the effectiveness of a treatment plan. So after you have given a particular treatment for any particular neural impairment, you can use these assessments to check if the function of the brain has improved or not. For example, a person suffered a head injury and doctor wants to know if the memory or attention was affected. For that, they can use neuropsychological assessments. And neuropsychological assessments can be used to identify ADHD or learning disabilities in students in school. So any counselors who are present in school, they'll be monitoring these students and using these assessments to find out if they have any learning disabilities. Uh, these assessments can also help to spot early signs of Alzheimer's disease in older people. Okay, so basically these assessments can be used as tools to identify whatever is wrong with the cognitive functions of a person. It helps doctors to decide what kind of treatment is to be used on a patient. And after the treatment is started, it helps to find out if the treatment plan is working and the patient is showing any progress or not. These are the reasons why we need neuropsychological assessments. So we have discussed why we need neuropsychological assessments. It's like finding out if someone is forgetting things, having trouble paying attention, or maybe feeling different after an accident. So here we see what are we assessing? Like we are assessing cognitive functions, right? What are these cognitive functions that are assessed by neuropsychological assessments? These include memory, attention, language, learning abilities, intelligence, perception, problem solving, including decision making and reasoning, and general mood, like how the person remains, how the mood of a person is on a normal day. Okay, so in short, we look at how people remember things using the memory, pay attention, how the person is talking, or understanding speech, solving problems, or how happy they feel in general. Okay, so these are the functions that are assessed using neuropsychological assessments. How do we test the cognitive functions, or what are the different methods we use in neuropsychological assessments? First would be interviews. It could be structured, where all the questions are decided in advance, or semi-structured interviews, where the questions are already prepared, but the psychologist may add in or delete questions as per the circumstances. So, answering questions is one of the tools that are used in neuropsychological assessments. You will be given questions which you have to answer, and based on those answers, your cognitive functions would be studied. Next is solving puzzles. So solving puzzles gives an insight into the problem solving skill of a person. Remembering less. So remembering means memory is being involved. So how well you remember less tells about the memory function. Copying shapes. You might be given a particular shape which you have to copy, maybe using your right hand or your left hand or maybe both. This would give an insight on your brain function. Then creating stories from pieces of clues. So all these are different tools that are used for testing the cognitive function, where in neuropsychological assessments. So what happens after a test is conducted? So after a test is conducted, the psychologist has all the answers to the questions or the how well you have performed in the test, and based on that a report is made that says what the person is good at and where they might need extra help. This helps the doctors or teachers or therapists or even families to make better plans like special teaching or therapy or treatment to the patient. Okay, so after conducting a test, a report is made for the patient, and this report is shared with the family, the teachers, if it is a student, or the therapist or the doctor who is conducting the treatment, and it will help them to decide how to help the person to improve their cognitive functions. Let us now look at the different neuropsychological assessments that are used by the psychologists. The first one we have is Wechsler Intelligence Scale. So you might see the spelling, but when you say it, it is said as Wechsler. Okay, it's Wechsler Intelligence Scale. It is a family of intelligence tests, first published in 1939 by David Wechsler. It includes the Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale 3, this is WAIS 3, Wechsler Intelligence Scale for Children, which is WISC 3, and Wechsler Preschool and Primary Intelligence Scale R, WPPISR. So this is a family of intelligence tests wherein you have different tests for adults, for children, and for preschool and primary school students. And we have the names for those here. It's called Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale for adults, Wechsler Intelligence Scale for children, and Wechsler Preschool and Primary Intelligence Scale. It is used to estimate overall intellectual ability and provide insights into specific cognitive strengths and weaknesses. So, as the name suggests, Wechsler Intelligence Scale is used to measure the intellectual ability of a person. And what you need to remember here is that it's not a single test, it's a family of tests with different tests for adults, children or adolescents, and different tests for preschool and primary students. Okay, that's all you need to remember here, and you need to remember the name, that is Wechsler Intelligence Scale. Next we have Halstead-Rayton Neuropsychological Battery. Okay, it's a comprehensive set of neuropsychological tests used to assess brain function and identify brain damage. Here again, you see the word battery, which means it's not a single test, it's a group of tests. So here it's a comprehensive set of neuropsychological tests which is used to assess brain function, and it is also used to identify if there is any damage to the brain. It was developed in the 1940s by Ward Halstead and later expanded by Ralph Rayton. Okay, so the test is named on the person who has first developed it and then later on expanded. So it's called Halstead-Rayton Neuropsychological Battery. The battery includes a variety of tests that assess different cognitive abilities, including verbal and non-verbal intelligence, memory, attention, motor functions, and sensory perceptual skills. So here we said it's a set of neuropsychological assessments or tests, and these set of tests, what are they used to measure? They measure different cognitive abilities including verbal intelligence, how well the person is able to communicate using words, spoken or written, non-verbal intelligence, how well the person is able to communicate without using any words, using expressions, body language, or maybe sign language. Then it also tests memory, how well the person is able to remember things, attention, how long the person is able to concentrate or give attention to anything, motor function. Motor function involve how your brain and body coordination works. Okay, like when you have to move from one place to another, maybe when you are touching a flame, how fast you are moving your hands. Those are all motor functions. And then there is sensory perceptual skills. How well you are able to perceive things using your senses. So these are the different things that are tested by Halstead-Rayton Neuropsychological Battery. Then it's reliable and valid for both children and adults. Okay, so this test is very much reliable, or it can be used to study a patient. Even if you conduct the test today and then you repeat the test after a month, it will give consistent results. That is what meant by reliability. It will give you consistent results every time you use this test to measure the cognitive function of a person. And it is valid. Valid means if one of the sets say it measures memory, it will give you a measure of the memory of the person. Okay, so it will measure what it claims to measure. That is called validity. And this Halstead-Rayton neuropsychological battery is reliable and valid for both children and adults. The third one we have is Luria, Nebraska Neuropsychological Battery. So here this term is common for the last test we learned, which was Halstead-Rayton. The only thing you need to remember is that was Halstead-Rayton and this is Luria, Nebraska. Okay. It is a standardized test used to assess cognitive and motor functions, especially in individuals with brain damage. So what do we use this test for? We used to test individuals who have brain damage to see what? To assess their cognitive and motor functions. What are the cognitive functions? Memory, attention, problem solving skills, all these come under cognitive function. What is motor function? How well your body is coordinated with your brain. Like, is it able to move? Are you able to control your movement? Balance, coordination, all this come under motor functions. So, Luria, Nebraska Neuropsychological Battery will test cognitive and motor functions in any individual who had a recent brain damage. Okay. So, it's based on the work of a Russian neuropsychologist, A.R. Luria. It's used for children 8 to 12 years old, adolescents and adults. Okay, so again this is also a battery. So we have a group of tests here, and we have different tests for children which come under 8 to 12 years. We have a different set of tests for adolescents. Adolescents are teenagers. And then we have a separate test for adults. It covers motor. What did I tell you? What is motor? Balance and coordination you have. Perceptual. Perceptual means how you are understanding or perceiving external stimuli or external signals. It could be auditory, which means if you are understanding or perceiving the sounds that you are hearing. Tactile means touch, if you are able to touch and identify things. Visual, if what you are seeing you are able to understand. That is perception. Auditory perception, understanding sounds. Tactile perception, understanding touch. Visual perception, if you are able to perceive what you are seeing. And then the next is language. Language could be spoken language or comprehension, or if you are able to understand what you are listening. Comprehension means you are able to comprehend or understand what you are hearing. Then academic, which includes reading, recognition, spelling, writing and arithmetic. Okay, so what are the academic functions that are being tested? If you are able to read, if the patient is able to recognize things, if you are able to spell things properly, if you are able to write everything properly, if you are able to do simple mathematical calculations or not. Okay, that comes under academic functions. Then there is memory, how well someone is able to remember things, and intelligence functioning. So all these are tested by Luria, Nebraska Neuropsychological Battery. Again, it assesses cognitive and motor functions in people who recently had a brain damage. So this is the third test. First test was what? Which was the first test? Do you remember? That was Wechsler Intelligence Scale. Next, Halstead-Rayton Neuropsychological Battery. Third, we had Luria, Nebraska Neuropsychological Battery. Next, we have Ray-Ostrate Complex Figure Test. Let's see what this test does. It's a neuropsychological assessment used to evaluate visuospatial construction, visual memory, and executive function. So this helps to evaluate how your eyes are creating the image of what it sees, visual memory, like how much you're able to remember what you see, and executive function. Executive functions involve higher order cognitive functions like thoughts, memory, or critical thinking, emotions. All these come under executive function. So this test was devised by Ray in 1941. Ostrate in 1944 developed norms for children between 4 to 15 years and adults between 16 to 60 years. Okay, here in India, our adult starts from 18-year-old, but when this test was developed, it was 16 to 60 years. Okay, so it involves copying a complex line drawing, then reproducing it from memory, and again after a delay. Okay, so the patients are asked to copy a complex line drawing. They are shown a card which has a complex line drawing. They are asked to copy it first. After they copy it, they are asked to do it again from memory without looking at the card. So first they have to draw it after looking at the card. Then they have to draw it from memory without looking at the card. And then they are given a break of some time. And after that delay or the time period, they are asked to draw it again. So this helps them to see if what they are seeing, if they are able to, construct it visually, they are able to process the image and reproduce it. And next it checks if without seeing when you draw it, if that has entered your memory, visual memory, if you can still remember what you have seen and drawn. So you have to draw it without looking at the card. Then after a delay of some time, the patient is asked to draw it all over again. This tells if how much their memory of what they have drawn twice before is remaining in the brain. Okay, so it tests the visuospatial construction by checking if you are able to draw the complex line drawing showed to you in the card, and then visual memory, if you can draw it without looking at the card from the memory, and executive function of higher order memory and problem solving or thinking thoughts thinking skills by asking you to draw it after a delay of some time. Okay. So this test is used to assess cognitive abilities like attention, how much attention you have given to the drawing while you were doing it, planning, and other executive functions. So that was Ray Ostrate complex figure test, where you are using a complex figure to see the visuospatial construction, visual memory, and executive function. Next we have Deleuze-Kaplan executive function test. So from the name itself, you know it tests executive function system. And what are the executive functions? The higher order brain functions like thoughts, emotions, and feelings. Okay. So this is a set of tests designed to measure how well a person's brain handles complex thinking tasks. Okay. It assesses the executive functions such as thinking, inhibition, problem solving, planning, impulse control, concept formation, abstract thinking, and creativity. So these are the executive functions tested by Deleuze-Kaplan executive function system. So here you need to remember the name and then you need to know what the executive functions are. So it will be easy for you to write what it is. So let's look at this again. What are the executive functions that are tested by Deleuze-Kaplan executive function system? Thinking, inhibition, problem solving, planning, impulse control, how well you are able to control your responses. Do you think first and then respond, or you, without thinking, you use your impulse to respond? Concept formation, like when you see something, when you read something, are you able to form a concept about what you saw or what you read? Abstract thinking and creativity. So this test can be administered in group or individually. Again, this is a set of tests. It's not a single test. So that was Deleuze-Kaplan executive function system. Next we have digit span test. So digits means numbers. So from the name itself we can guess that it would be about remembering the numbers. It's a common measure of short-term memory and working memory. Okay. So this is a neuropsychological assessment that is used to measure the short-term memory and the working memory. It involves recalling a sequence of digits or numbers, either in the order they were presented, which is called the forward span, or in a reverse order, which is called backward span. So, the patient will be given a string of numbers. Okay, the length of the string might vary as per the uh, researcher or as per the psychologist. They might have decided upon different strings based on the capabilities of the patient being tested. Okay, it involves recalling a sequence of digits or sequence of numbers which are presented to the patient. They are given some time to look at the numbers and then they are asked to reproduce or tell those numbers without looking in the same order as they were presented to it, which is called forward span, or in a reverse order, which is called backward span. Okay. So this test was earlier a component of many other intelligence tests of Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale. So if you remember, Wechsler was a group of tests, right? We had a different test for adult, a different test for children, we had a different test for adolescents. So this digit span test earlier used to be a part of the Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale. Okay, so that was the digit span test which tests memory. Then the next test we have, the next neuropsychological assessment we have is the Wisconsin card sorting test. Okay, this is the name of a place in US and card sorting test. I guess you get an idea from the name itself. It's a neuropsychological test used to assess executive functions. Again, you are testing executive functions here, particularly the ability to shift cognitive sets and adapt to changing rules. So here, what you are checking is adaptability. How well the person is able to adapt to changing conditions. This is also called set shifting. Okay, there's another name for the test, that is set shifting. And what is this test checking? How well the person is able to adapt in changing situations. So what do we do here? Patients are presented with 64 cards that vary in shape, color, and number and are asked to sort them according to an unstated rule. So what happens is that there are a set of 64 cards which are of different colors, different shapes, and different number. Something like maybe UNO. I hope you have played UNO once or at least once in your life or at least heard about it. This is something similar. There would be cards of different color, shape, and number, and then the patient is asked to sort them. And there is no rule set. There is unstated rule. The patient can do howsoever, start with whatever rule they want to. And then once they start doing it, the researcher or the psychologist, they change the rule periodically. Okay, maybe after 5 minutes, they are asked to, okay, now stop and start sorting based on color. Once they start sorting with the color, they might then ask them to stop and change and then sort according to numbers. Or maybe make it a bit more complicated by asking them to sort according to even numbers or odd numbers or maybe a particular shape. Okay, so whenever the rule is changed periodically, it requires the participant to learn and adapt to the new criterion. So in this way, the psychologist is able to assess that how well and how fast the person is able to understand the new rule, adapt to it, and start sorting the cards based on the new rule. Okay. So Wisconsin card sorting test is used to assess frontal lobe dysfunction. So frontal lobe is the front part of your brain. We'll learn in detail the parts of brain. All you need to know is that this test helps to assess if there is any problem in the functioning of your frontal lobe after a brain injury or in patients with schizophrenia and any other mental illness. Okay, so I guess the card sorting test is easy to remember. You just need to remember the name of the place, Wisconsin, and the card sorting test, where there are 64 cards that vary in color, shape, and number. The patient is asked to sort it howsoever they want to, and once they start, the psychologist changes the rule periodically or changes the criteria based on which the cards need to be sorted, and it's tested how well the patient is able to learn and adapt to the new criterion. Okay, the last one we have is dichotic listening test. Okay, so di means two, otic means ears. Okay, so this means you are listening to something using both your ears. So you might wonder, yeah, we always use both our ears. Only difference here is that both of your ears would be given two different things to listen to. And then the psychologist will see how well you are able to make a distinction between what you hear on your left side and what you hear on your right side. Okay. So this is a psychological experiment where different auditory stimuli are presented simultaneously to both ears. So two different kind of sounds are provided to your two ears at the same time. Okay, allowing researchers to study selective attention, brain lateralization, and auditory processing. Selective attention means if you are able to selectively, so you are given two different sounds to both your ears, and then I'm asking you, what do you listen in, what do you hear in your right ear? So I check if you are able to selectively, concentrate on what's the sound coming on that particular ear, and you're able to tell me. When there is lots of noise, both of your ears are hearing different things, and if you are able to concentrate on one of those and tell me what you were listening through that ear, that is what is selective attention. Brain lateralization means you have a right brain, you have a left brain, left side of the brain, and both these sides are thought to have different functions. So dichotic listening test helps the researcher or the psychologist to tell which part of your brain is active while you are listening to different kinds of sounds. And auditory processing. Auditory processing means if your brain is able to process or understand the different sounds that you are hearing through both your ears. Then the participant is presented with two different auditory stimuli through earphones. Okay. Then the participants are asked to focus on one ear or both and then report what they hear or what they have heard. That's what I told you. Both ears, different sounds, and the psychologist may ask them to report what they hear through either of the ears or both of the ears. The researchers analyzed the accuracy of the reports and the frequency of responses from each ear to understand how the brain is processing the information. So this was dichotic listening test. Again I said the meaning is there in the words. Di means two, otic means ears. So two different sounds, two different ears, and you have to identify and isolate each of the sounds and report. This was dichotic listening test. So that was all about the test. Now I'll give you a trick to remember it, okay? I don't know how well the trick will work for you, but it did work for me. So these are all the tests that we have learned. Wechsler was all about smartness or intelligence, right? And Halstead-Rayton, brain checkup. Luria, Nebraska, brain map. Ray Ostrich, drawing memory. If you remember the complex line drawing that the patient has shown, the person have to draw it and remember. Dallas Kaplan, executive functions. You know which are the executive functions. Digit span, where you have to remember the numbers or the number memory. And then there is Wisconsin card sorting, where there are 64 cards and you have to sort the cards and the rules may keep changing, which means it checks the flexible thinking or adaptability. And then there was dichotic listening or two-ear listening. So these were the tests. Now I'm going to give you a simple story. You can use the story to remember these tests in this order. So this is the story. Wendy Wexler was the smartest kid in town. Okay. So in this line, you have the name of Wendy Wexler. What was the smartest kid in town? What the smartest means? She was the most intelligent kid in the town. Okay. So she visited Dr. Halstead Rayton for a brain checkup. Okay. So what does she do? She visits the doctor and the name of the doctor is Halstead Rayton. She visits the doctor for a brain checkup. Doctor sent her to a famous Luria, Nebraska clinic to make a brain map. Okay. So now she went to the Dr. Halstead Rayton who sent her to the famous Luria, Nebraska clinic to make a brain map. Then Wendy had to draw a very complicated figure for the Ray Ostrich test. So Wendy, who's the smartest kid in town, she visits the Dr. Halstead Rayton for a brain checkup. The doctor sends her to a very famous clinic which is called Luria, Nebraska to get a brain map done. And when she goes there for the brain map, she's asked to draw a very complicated figure for the Ray Ostrich test. Next, she played the Dallas Kaplan executive game, making tough executive decisions. Okay. Now she is asked to play a game. And what was the name of the game? Dallas Kaplan executive game, making tough executive decisions. Then she showed off her digit span skills by remembering numbers backwards and forward. So, Wendy, who has gone to the Luria, Nebraska clinic to get a brain map, has given the Ray Ostrich test by drawing a very complicated figure. She has shown tough executive function by playing the Dallas Kaplan executive game. Then she shows off a digit span skill by remembering numbers backward and forward. After she mastered the Wisconsin card sorting game by changing rules super fast, okay, afterwards she has mastered the Wisconsin card game by changing the rules quickly, very quickly. Finally, she aced the dichotic listening test, hearing two things at once with both ears. Okay, she could listen to two different things at the same time with both ears, and she aced the test also. And because of which she is still the smartest. Wendy Wexler is still the smartest or the most intelligent kid in the town. So if you can visualize the story and remember the parts of the story, it will help you to remember the different tests that you have just learned. I have another mnemonic for you. It's a bit more difficult, but yeah, I don't know what might help you, but if this helps, good. This one says, Wise Harry loves reading difficult data with determination. So here, Wise, W stands for Wexler, Harry for Halstead Rayton, love ka L for Luria, Nebraska. Reading, R for Ray Ostrich. D for Dallas Kaplan. Again D for digit span. W for Wisconsin card sorting test. And D for dichotic listening. Whichever works for you. I've given you 2 tricks to remember these tests. You can use either of them. And if you have something of your own, which maybe you can try making something of your own. And if you make one, do let me know in the comments. Okay, it's like making mnemonics is always fun. So yeah, do let me know if you are able to create something for your own purpose. So that was all about neuropsychological assessments. Let's look at the previous year questions. So yeah, there were not many years when this question came, but yeah, it did come recently in 2 of the term end examinations. The first one was June 2023 and this question came for 10 marks. Discuss neuropsychological assessment in brain behavior. And then again in June 2022, this question came again for 10 marks, which says, explain neuropsychological assessment for cognitive functioning. So I have taught you all about neuropsychological assessment. I have given you mnemonic also to remember. All you need to do is write what you have understood, and yeah, that should be good enough for 10 marks. That was all about this topic. I hope you had fun with the neuropsychological assessments. And yeah, let me know by liking the video. Do subscribe and share it with your friends also. This is Dr. Swapna signing off. Keep learning, have fun, take care. Bye bye.